Hello everyone and welcome, it's Shanna. Now in today's video we're going to make these two cards and they are super fun. So I've got the Beep Beep die set from Hero Arts and it has this car, you've got Santa, and then you've got the deer, and here's the deer, and it's got the elements to make Santa, and all your car parts are in that. And then I've also got the Beep Beep Holiday Extras, and you've got all your packages, your wreath, your tree, your Santa bag, just fun stuff. And I have got the Winter Words press plates, and I have taken these and foiled them. I've got actually two sets there. And then we have got the Beep Beep Leaf Peeper die set. And it's got a scarecrow and some pumpkins and some birds and some leaves, and it's a really cute set. So you can make a fall card. And then with that, I have got the fall words, and I have pressed them and or foiled them as well. So I've got both of my card materials all die cut out here. We're going to start with the Christmas one because we're going to start out with the base die set. And this is, the base includes Santa and then the reindeer or the deer in it. And so I've got all my little elements here. Now we are going to do a lot of assembly, and we're going to do, make some background panels and do some stenciling. And this is going to be a really long video. But I hope you'll stay with me to the end because the second card is super fun. We're going to add some fun elements to it. So I'm going to assemble everything for the car on the first card, and then the second one I'll put the car together off camera because it's the same thing. So basically right now is I've got two black tires and I'm just laying them down. I've chosen poppy cardstock for my color of car, and then we just got some raven black and die cut the wheels out. Now I have chosen for all of the elements. I'm actually looking for a different colored steering wheel, but I'll wind up going with, I use some matte silver cardstock for the bumpers, the mirrors, and for this particular steering wheel, and then also the backer for the lights. I've used the silver, and so we're going to use those and get all those laid down on there. And I've just chosen some traditional colors for this Christmas card here, and I think it's going to come together very nicely. So I've got, here's my bumper, and I just need to get it laid down. It's kind of bowed a little bit from going through the die cutting machine, but we'll get it glued down and it'll look nice on there. I like the silver too. I like this kind of matte looking silver. And then here are the backers for the lights. And we've got the headlights, and then we've got some, I guess, running lights is what I would call them, underneath there that will be backing those as well. And so I'm just going to get these laid down on here. Now, I had originally thought that I thought I'll just make this video and talk through it. And I was getting everything prepared. And if you guys have paid any attention to my channel, we've had tremendous rain and flooding in our area. And we'd had 4.5 inches when Pat went out and checked the rain gauge. And it started again, thundering and just torrential rain. There's serious flooding in our area. There's evacuations going on. There's some rescues being made. It's just really, really bad. Now, at the moment that I'm doing this voiceover, it has stopped for a minute. I was telling my husband, I said I need to do that voiceover, but we've had so much booming, and the weather radio has been going off just all day long, every day. We lost power for a couple of hours the other day. Today, it bumped again, and I thought we were going to lose it again. So it's been really some inclement weather here in Indiana. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking, this is like a little license plate, and I've used the silver for it, and then I backed it with some black, and I'm actually adding back in the inside of a letter. Actually, these are the insides of the R's in Mary, and I just added those back in so that the word would look correct. So I had to keep those center pieces that fell out and then get them laid down in there. So our car is coming together. We've got our little license plate, and since I'm using that metallic, I thought I'd just use some glue runner. It's actually a glue tape runner. and that way I could get this to stick, and then I've got glue on there for the long hold. Now I didn't have that lined up quite right, so I just lifted it up, and there we go. So now we're going to get our little running lights, get their little metal piece laid down on there, and then we'll have both of our lights ready to go. We can bring in like our headlamps, our lamps or whatever. So I've die cut each of these lights out, and I think it might be saffron. It's pretty bright. I think it's saffron. There are 3 colors from Spellbinders that are easily to get confused with. There's beeswax, saffron, and Tuscan. Beeswax is a little bit more on the yellow. Saffron is pretty stark, and then Tuscan is a little more honey colored. But I like to use them all. So anyway, so I'm going to get all these little bits and pieces laid down on here. Now throughout this video I will speed up certain things, and I've tried to cut out as lot as I could to get it down to a reasonable time, but it is a lengthy video, so just ask that you'd hang out. We're going to make some fun cards. And it really, it is a longer video than I prefer, just because there's, you got to narrate the whole thing, and I'm not really much of a talker. So anyway, so I'm going to get this beard laid down on our Santa, and his little face is going to start to come together. So for his skin, I think I just used some Bellini. Actually, that might be, I think maybe I grabbed chiffon. I grabbed chiffon for his skin. And then I'm just getting the little facial accessories laid down on here. He's got a cute little nose and a couple cheeks. I won't put the cheeks on immediately, and then I'll grab them and add them. But I used the poppy cardstock out of those because Santa's cheeks and nose are always red because he's cold. So this is where you definitely need your tweezers, your wax tool, all the little bits and pieces. When I have these little tiny die cut pieces, I put them on tape so that they don't jump out of my little bin that I've got them in. And when I could keep them in the cardstock, I did that. Now these two little things here are the teeniest, tiniest little die cut pieces, and they are eyes. They die cut out with the hands that you're going to put on the steering wheel. And so I just used the Bellini, and then I just brought in my Copic marker and just made them black. And I'm just going to put the teeniest little drop of white glue down there and get them laid down. Now that little flash you saw, we had a power outage, and that's what that was. We had a bump in the power. Fortunately, it went off and came right back on, but that's what you saw there was the flash when the power went out and came back on. So fortunately, it was just a short outage today. Yesterday was much longer. So I'm going to get his hat laid down on here, and he's going to start to come together. So there's good detail on there, so you know how to just line everything up perfectly. And he's a cute little Santa. And I love the way they did the hands for the steering wheel. Super fun. And I'll show you that when we get going. But I'm just looking for my bits and pieces. He actually has some eyebrows that I haven't put on yet. And I won't realize until the very end when I get to looking that, oh, I forgot his eyebrows. And I'll get them put on there. They're just teeny tiny pieces. And so we'll put the little ball on his hat, if I can find it. And we'll give that a press. And there we go. I think except for his eyebrows, his face is all done. And then here's his little body. And there's lots of detail on there so that you can see where you're going to put the fur around on his cuffs, and then the fur down the middle of his jacket. And it just shows you how to line that up on there. And it is important that you get him in the right spot because you're going to position the steering wheel around those and put his hands on the steering wheel. So I'm just going to get him a little bit more glue on there and get them positioned right where they go. And they're designed to, you can see how they curve. They're going to curve right around that steering wheel like that, just like that. And so we'll get this attached, and then we can add the hands, and then we'll add Santa's head to it. So I'm just going to get it pressed down on there and positioned to where, the cuffs of his sleeve are right there by it. And then you have these cute little hands, And I'm just going to put some glue on the steering wheel, and then I'll grab those hands and bring them in. And and it just looks like his hands are wrapped right around that steering wheel. Get him laid down on there. Look at that. Okay, it looks funny without the head, but anyways, we'll just get his head tucked in there. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue around the top of that, just enough to get it where I want it to lay down. And we'll get him positioned. And there he is. He's ready. His car's going, and he's ready to go beep, beep down the road. So he has also got a reindeer traveling with him, so I'm going to get the reindeer assembled. It is basically 3 pieces. You've got the reindeer, the head, and then you've got the antlers, and then the tip to his nose. So I guess it's really 4 pieces if you count the antlers separate, but just a cute little addition. And he's just riding, he's along with Santa for the ride. And so I'm going to get his antlers on there, and then we'll put the little nose piece on there. Just trying to get him lined up nice and neat. And I'm just kind of looking at how I'm going to position him in there. We'll put a little dot of glue on there, and then we're going to bring in that brown dot for his nose and just get it laid down on there. And that'll be our deer. So now we're going to bring in all the fun embellishments. The accessory Beep Beep Holiday Extras has got this wreath, and it's a 2-layered wreath. And I've chosen 2 different colors of cardstock for the wreath. And I'm thinking I'm going to have it on the front of the card, so I'm just kind of checking it out to see what it looks like on there. Now there is a pair of antlers and a nose that you could put the antlers on the top of the car and the nose on the front of the car, but I'm not going to choose to use them for this one because I'm going to go with the wreath, and I'm going to have plenty of elements. So these are the little lights, the decorative lights, and they have a bunch of little bulbs that go with them, and then you've got some bulbs that go on the Christmas tree, and we're going to get those all laid down on here and decorate our Christmas tree up. Now for this, it's pretty redundant. I'm just putting little blobs of glue on there and then laying all these little ornaments down. So I'm going to speed these up just to kind of save some time, because this was really a lot of footage. It was well over an hour, probably an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. And so I tried to cut out everything that I could that wasn't necessary, and then speed up the things that were, not that challenging and that weren't, that interesting. So we got all those laid down on there, and then we've got our wreath. And I'm going to bring in a bow for our wreath. I've got some pieces die cut out in here, and I'm going to find a bow and get it added to the wreath. So I've got another piece of poppy cardstock, and I die cut the wreath out of that, or the bow out of that, and I'm just going to get it added to my wreath. So we'll put a little bit of glue on there, just position it, and then we're going to put it right on the hood of our car. I don't know if you've ever seen, a lot of times you'll see like semi-drivers that will attach a wreath to their grill in the wintertime. I've seen that in our area quite a bit. I'm going to do the same thing with these lights, and I'm just going to cut out part of it, and I'm just going to get all of the little pieces laid down on there, and then we'll have our string of lights ready. And we're going to lay these aside. We'll figure out what we're going to do with them later, but we've got our lights. I'm trying to actually show and assemble everything that is included in the kit. Now I had more light bulbs than I needed, and this is a shape that's specific to the lights, but I went ahead and used them on the tree because the tree's going to kind of be in the background anyway, and I just wanted it to have a lot of bulbs on it. So I'm just going to add these and just use them up, and it's going to be kind of in the background of our scene there. And so now I'm going to get Santa's bag. You have the bag, and then you've got like the string that ties around it, and then the bow. And I'm just fumbling around. So I've got all that assembled. I'm going to tuck it in behind Santa. Messing around with these lights. This is not where they wind up, but we'll put them on later. I actually wind up putting them down here on the bottom when it all is said and done. So next we've got a bunch of packages, and I've die cut all 3 of them out, and I've die cut out their ribbons and their bows, and we're just going to get these all assembled as well. Now this here is the nose to the reindeer, if you wanted to put that on the front of the car with these antlers. So you've got these big antlers, and then that, and that would be fun, but I'm not going to choose to use it. So we'll get our packages put together, and then we'll get them finished up. So this is another section that I did speed up. You've just got little strips for the decorative pieces. For this particular one, it makes a striped package. And then you've got a couple of different, I think 3 different types of bows that you can add on here, 2 or 3 for that. And so I've got a green and red package. I've also got a chiffon package with some green on it, and then another chiffon package with some red on it. Just kind of reuse kind of the same colors we had all along. Now I decided for 5x7 for this card. So I went ahead and cut and made my own 5x7 card base, and I'm going to bring in a panel, and we're going to cut it down to 4 3/4 by 5 3/4, and it's going to layer on top of our 5x7 card base. And what I cut off of there, I'm just going to create myself a snow mound. In fact, I'll cut a couple of these, and we'll actually have a little snowy scene here. Now the die set that comes with the car has a whole bunch of snowflakes and little dots, little circles that you can use to have like snow and snowflakes coming down your sky. So I'm going to use those. I grabbed my blue blending brush with whatever was on there and just roughly laid some color down there. So it looks like very much like a wintry scene, and I really like it. I mean, I didn't have to grab any ink. It was super simple. I kind of cleaned my brush off on this paper. Now we've got all of these snowflakes, and I'm just going to get these laid down all over our card, the back of our card base, and it's just going to be a real snowy scene. So we'll get some dabs of glue on here, and then I'll just speed it up and get these snowflakes laid down on here. And I'm just going to sprinkle several of them all around, and I just kind of used my card. I positioned it just to kind of give me an idea of where to put them, and I'm just kind of working in that area and filling it in and just putting a lot of these down. I'm going to use the snowflakes and the little circle dots and just try to really fill it in and make it look like a very snowy area. And then our car is going to be driving on some snow-covered roads. And there's our finished panel. Super simple, just, a little ink blending and our snowflakes, and it came together. Now here I've decided I want more than one layer. So I'm going to grab another piece of paper and just create another snow mound. And I'm going to try and make it a little different than the other one, and we'll position this behind it. And so I'm just going to get this laid down on here, and we'll layer them up. I didn't even put any foam on there or anything. These Christmas cards that I've been making, recently, I've been trying to make them a little bit more flat so that they're more malleable and not as bulky. So I'm just going to bring that blending brush in, and we're going to add just some shadows to our little snow mounds. It's not really going to matter because, the card's going to cover a lot of it up. So I made those longer than what I needed, and I'm just going to snip them down. And there we go. We've got our background for our card. So I'm going to lay this down. We're going to have a white frame around there, and it's going to be kind of a clean look with that white frame. And we'll get our panel laid down on here. Then we can add our car and all of our little bits and pieces, and it's going to come together pretty quickly. At this point, I should say. There was a lot of die cutting and a lot of assembly, but I'm a die girl, man. I love the dies, and I love to assemble them. I love to create these little scenes, and I don't know, the smaller the better, I guess. So I'm going to use some foam and pop this up. I'm going to position it to where I can tuck things in behind it. And so I'll put all those in there, and I've positioned them so that I'll be able to tuck everything where I want to tuck it, and it'll go in there easily. So I've got my Santa bag. It's going to be behind him because, that's his bag, and I want to just kind of stick it there behind him so you could see that it was kind of hanging out there. His car is just chocked full of stuff. And I'm assuming this is a convertible because he's just got a ton of stuff hanging out. So I'm going to bring in some foam squares. I failed to put some on the back of the rear view or the side mirrors, and they will get bent if I didn't put that on there. So we'll get them on there. We're just going to tuck our tree in, and it's going to kind of be angled a little bit and just kind of hanging out of the top of our car. We'll get some glue laid down on there. I'm just trying everything out before I stick the glue down. So you're going to see me put it in and take it out and put it back in. And there is our tree, and that kind of helps fill in some of the extra space. And then our deer, he's going to be kind of like, how the dogs like to go down the road with their head hanging out the window? That's how he's going to be in this. So we're going to stick his little head out the window, and he's just getting a little air up his nose like the dogs do. So I'll just slide it in there and just kind of hide the fact that he doesn't have a body. And then we're going to get one of our presents and we're going to tuck it in. I'm going to kind of play around with them. I decided that I wanted the Bellini up top, and so I'm going to bring my Bellini presents and kind of stack them at the top of the car. And then we'll bring the green one and put it on the inside of the car. So we're just going to tuck this in beside Santa. He is loaded down. And we'll get some glue on it and get it laid down. I don't know when our next little swath of rain is coming. I know it's coming, but I'm not sure when. So I'm just trying to get this voiceover done before all the clanging and banging and thundering and all that starts to happen. So here's a Bellini present with some green on there. It's a lighter green. And then I hadn't removed the foam square from Santa's head so that I could tuck behind, and I just removed it, and so everything's going to be good and stuck down now. We're going to add our wreath to the front of this car. Now you can pop up the hood of that car. It is detached there at the bottom, so you can raise it if you want some detail there. Now for my lights, I'm looking at them like hanging it over here, and then I'm like, no, we're going to put them on the bottom. So I'll get them laid down on there. Now these lights on this little car, if you've ever seen the movie Money Pit, where the gal that bought the house has to come home from work in a taxi, and it's a little car like this, and he's got a bunch of lights on it. And this car reminds me of that. Funny that just popped into my head, but I think he had a bunch of lights on that car, and it was like I think it was like a little Volkswagen type car or whatever, but this just really puts me in the mind. But that is a show that I love to watch over and over. It is just hysterical. So here are the reindeer elements that I'm showing you could add to the card. I just wanted to show you, but I'm not using them. And then we're going to grab a sentiment. I'm going to look at some of them. I've got all of them. I went ahead and foiled all of them because I'll be making more Christmas cards, and these are great sentiments. I wound up going, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year is the one that I chose. But there are some fantastic sentiments. Let's just read through them as I'm laying this down. We've got I'll Be Home for Christmas, Merry Christmas, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, Season's Greetings, Sending Holiday Cheer, Believe, Happy Holidays, and Dashing Through the Snow. I was tempted to use Dashing Through the Snow, but I just thought with the snowflakes and everything and the packages, I thought it's just the most wonderful time of year. So here I'm putting those eyebrows on. Last but not least, they're teeny tiny pieces. Just a little bit of glue, and you need your wax tool and your tweezers to get them lined up. And then that'll finish off our card. I think he's super cute. Look at those eyebrows. Anyway, it is a fun card with a lot of fun elements. So we are going to work with that next set, which is going to create the fall card. And so I'm going to be bringing in Beep Beep Leaf Pepper die set. And we've got a Scarecrow, and I'm going to get to assembling the Scarecrow. So I've die cut out the face, I should say the head, because it's the whole head area, in just a craft cardstock. And then I've got a cinnamon colored cardstock here, and I'm going to get the hat laid down on there. And then I brought in, I think it's some saffron for his hair. Now this is the band. This is also, I think, saffron. This is the band for his hat, his straw hat. And I'm going to get it laid down on there. And then we'll bring in the hair. The hair is just hilarious. This is the hair. It's, like a rag mop or whatever. And I'm going to get it glued up and laid down on here. And then I'm going to bring in a blending brush, and we're going to blend this up a little bit. I had forgotten when I assembled my car that I wanted to do some ink blending, and so I'm going to grab my blending brushes and we'll get to blending. Now this particular one is like my browns, and I use distress oxides. So I'm not having very much on there, so I'm going to grab my vintage photo and we'll add some ink and lay some ink down. So just trying to get a little bit of shading, and this particular color actually works with all of these colors that I've got on here. And so we'll get this wiped up, and then we've got the shirt and the cinnamon. And here are the eyes for the Scarecrow, and I've just got some brown pieces. I'm checking all my tape pieces to make sure that I'm grabbing the right things that I need. And you can see they're stuck to my fingers, so I'm going to try and get them laid back down in my tray. And then we'll get these eyes laid down on this Scarecrow. There's also, this tape here has got the nose and the cheeks that are on there. I lay the nose down, and I'm thinking that the other pieces are for something else, and I'll come back in and get the cheeks laid down after I realize that they actually go on there. But it's super cute. It's starting to come together and look cute. So I'm going to add, this is his shirt, and I'm showing you there's a spot for his hands, and these are the hands. So I cleaned up that ink that's on there. We're going to get the shirt laid down with the steering wheel, and then we'll get the hands and get it assembled on there. You want to attach the shirt to the hands, and then you can put, or to the steering wheel, and then you can put your hands on there. So I'm just going to get those laid down on there. Now, I will tell you, I forgot to put his collar on, and so I'll get his head laid down on there, and then as I move through the contents that are in my dish there, I will find the collar, and then we'll rip his head off and put his collar back on, and then lay his head back down, and he will look better. I'm going to show it to you because I think I'm finished, but I'm not. So you could get away with it like this, but there is a nice little collar on there. And so I'm just going to keep moving through here. Here is a sunflower, and you've got 2 layers of the flower in, I think I used beeswax, and I'm going to line these up, and then we'll lay it on our stem there. And I've got a brown center to this, and I'm just going to get it laid down on there. I think it sticks to my finger, and then I have to give it another press. That's one thing when you're working with all the small die cut pieces, you have glue all over your hands, and then everything starts sticking together. So we'll get this flower laid down on its stem, and this is going to be another fun element for our autumn card that we're going to create. And you can see I'm laying things in there as I think I'm going to position them. This is our big pumpkin, and I used some, I think, carrot cardstock for this, and we've got a green stem for it, and then I've also used some more of that saffron and cut out another smaller pumpkin, and we'll get its green little stem on there. And I'm trying to get it turned around so I can get it lined up right. It's tiny. Give it a good press. And then I'm just going to go ahead and adhere these together because they're going to be stacked in the car anyway. And so I'll just glue them together and they'll be ready to go. Now we have 2 birds. One is flying and one is standing. So I'm showing you I'm probably going to put one over the top of the car. And then here's where I've realized I need to put the cheeks on the Scarecrow. And so we'll grab these and get them laid down. I realized that because then I found the eyes for the birds, and I realized that these were for the Scarecrow. And I'm just going to get them positioned where his cheeks should be. And it does make it look cuter. So we'll get those on there. And then the birds, they both have circles for their eyes. They've got their beaks and then their feet. And so I've got all of these things die cut out in saffron, the eyes and the beaks. And we'll get those laid down on there. And then I'm using the black for their feet. And I could have used a different color for the feet, but I just went with black. And so I'll get the beak laid down on this one. And then we've got the beak for the other one. And it's kind of an interesting looking beak. It's got a cutout in it, and you just kind of lay it down on there because its mouth is open where the other one is closed. Now here's my little piece of tape that I've got all of my feet on. And so we'll get them pulled off and laid down. I'm just using washi tape for that. And I've laid them down there, and then I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, these need switched. These feet need to be on this guy, and these feet need to be on that guy. And so we'll just move them over. I'll put little teeny tiny dots of glue on there, and then we'll hold the bird over there and just pick the feet up. This was a fun set. I had a blast working with it. And I'll tell you, while I was working with it, it was just storming away. And I thought, what so awesome that I have all these things to play with when there's nothing else you can do because it is just raining cats and dogs. So it kept me very entertained as the backyard was filling up with water and everything was booming. we've got a good bit of standing water in our area. Now, we're not near, a flood zone or anything like that, but we do have a good amount of water. I was sending some of my friends some updates on what's going on where my youngest daughter lives. They're doing boat evacuations in that area. And I don't know if I said that already on the video. If I did, I apologize for repeating. It's a long video. I've been talking for a minute. But but they've got a river in that area that I'm sure is busting out. Now, my husband feels like my daughter's house is in an area that should be fine, but there is a lot of that going on. And then our county sent out a thing and it said we have no more, those signs that say standing water and cones and all that stuff. They said we have no more available to use. If it looks like a lake, don't drive through it. That's basically what they said, which people should know better than that. But crazy enough, they still do it. In fact, while we were at breakfast, my daughter came to breakfast before this all busted loose, and we went to breakfast, and she showed me a video in her town where a school bus was driving through a street where the water was coming up to the steps on the bus, and she actually pulled up and opened the door for a kid to get in, and the kid's like, I'm not getting in there. And turned around, and I think the mother was videoing it. It was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, who would drive through that water with kids on a school bus? But anyway, what they wound up doing was having their buses turning around and taking the kids back home. And then my daughter's kids go to a different school, and they actually canceled in advance. So they didn't go. But locally here, our kids went. I took the boys to school this morning. And fortunately, it hadn't started raining because like I said, it didn't start raining until after we had breakfast with my daughter, and then it really kicked in. But fortunately, because yesterday when I took them, it was torrential rain, and I had their jackets on them and everything, and we were, getting soaked trying to get into school. But today, it held off until we got them in, and then we got breakfast and everything, so. But then it rained the whole afternoon. I didn't know if they'd wind up dismissing the kids early or not. But I think our schools actually got the school day done. So I have been talking through this. I took the Highway Horizons Desert, and this is the Mindy Egan Cars stencil, and put the road down on there. I thought it'd be fun to have the road. So I'll link that stencil in the description box along with all the other products. And I'm going to use this sun. And the sun here has a mountain in the background. I don't want mountains because this is going to be a leafy fall scene. And so I'll decide, flip this over. And then when I put my car down, my Scarecrow's head will cover that up. And so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just trying to make this a fall, kind of a sunny fall scene, and just with that yellow. So I'm going to mask this off so that I don't get any of the orange that I'm going to use for the sun. So I just brought in my Distress Oxide Spiced Marmalade, and we're going to use it and get our sun inked up. So I am a totally messy crafter, so I'm going to bring in another piece of cardstock. This is just some packaging that I've cut off, and I'm laying it down so that I don't get it on the top area of my panel. And we've got our little sun there with our little mountain looking thing, but it's not going to matter because the Scarecrow's head's going to cover it up. Now, I felt like it wasn't enough. I thought it's too plain. So I went digging for a stencil, and I found this stencil in my stash, not even sure where it's from. And I laid it down on there, and I don't want the full burst. And so I'm just going to kind of hang around in the center area and just lay down a little bit of these burst of sun on there. And I like that. I think that looks pretty good. And it kind of extends out beyond the car, so that works out nice. And so we're done creating our background panel for this. I am going to cut it down, so I'm going to bring in, I'm doing a I'm doing A2 size card on this one. And I'm just going to take it down to 3 3/4 by 5 and just kind of draw our scene in a little bit. And then we'll have a little frame around our scene. And there we go. So we've got our panel ready, and you can see that little mountain in the background, but the way I'll position the Scarecrow and all the bits and pieces, you will not realize that that's there. And it just looks like the sun is, you can see the sun through the window of the car. And so I'm just going to start positioning things and getting them all laid down on here. I'm trying to figure out where I want them to go. I think I'm going to put I'm trying the bird on the roof, but I wind up putting it on the dash because I ink blended on the dash or on the hood there. And so that's a good place to put the bird because it appears that the bird is casting a shadow on the car. So I just brought in some Spellbinders cardstock here. I was thinking either black or brown, and so I decided to go with truffle. Because I've got the black road and then the black birds, I thought the brown didn't get didn't get lost in the road, or the road didn't get lost in a black panel. And so I'll just use this brown panel, and we're just going to have a little frame around our little scene, and I think it comes together really fun. I really like these sets. So I'm going to get it glued up and get it laid down, and then we'll assemble all of our little bits and pieces. So I encourage you to shop your stash and just think about what things you can bring in and add to your new stuff to really create a different look. And that's what I did here with the stencils, and just created kind of a background look that I didn't know what I was going to do with this card, and I just happened to think of that, and I thought, well, that'll be fun. So I'm doing the same thing I did with the other car. I'm putting some foam squares on the back as well as those side mirrors so that they don't get squished down, and just give it a little press. And now we've got room to tuck everything. I had a little bit of glue up there in the upper corner, so I want to pull it off. So I'm just going to tuck my pumpkins in kind of back behind my little Scarecrow's shoulder. We'll get some glue laid down on there, tuck those in, get them positioned. And then we've got our little sunflower, and it's just going to kind of hang out of the front of our car. I just think it's cute, and I'm just going to let it hang over the frame of the window there. And just give it a little press. Now we're going to bring in our bird that is standing, and I'm going to position it here on the hood and lay it down there in that area where I added the shadow, and it kind of looks like the bird is casting the shadow on the top of the hood of the car. And then we're going to bring our other bird in, and it's just going to be flying overhead. So I'll get a little glue on there and just kind of lay it down in the upper right-hand corner. And then we have all these leafy elements, and it is fall and leaves are falling. And so I'm just going to sprinkle them kind of like I did the snowflakes on the first card, and just have them, they're just blowing in the wind. And so we're just going to get them all over the place and just have our little leaves. And I think it comes together really cute. Now, I've got to bring in a sentiment, and I decided to use one of the chunky ones, and this one just says thankful. And I'm going to get it laid down on there and give it a press, and then this will finish off our fall beep beep card. So I've taken a couple pictures. If you like this content and you're interested in Hero Arts materials, I have linked up a playlist where you can watch more. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.